What's up? What's up? This is Luke Stokes and Rieki Cordon. Thank you so much for setting all this up. I'm super excited to connect with another person in this space that fully gets and understands the importance of DACs, decentralized autonomous communities. So we kind of connected on Facebook, right? Just kind of bounced around ideas and then had a quick call, and then we're like, man, we should talk about this and record it. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, and then I'll do the same.
Sure. Yes, I'm Rieki Cordon. I'm super interested in how we can leverage this really radical technology to create completely new societies. So our personal focus, my personal focus, is creating a regenerative society. So one where we're reconnecting with our earth, taking care of our planet, and redirecting the awesome power of our financial systems to regenerating our planet and building the world that we'd much rather live in. So, yeah.
I love it. That's been my tagline for a while. Is I want to help create the world we all want to live in. You know, it's like a basic concept that just makes a lot of sense to me. And
I mean, we're feeling it. We know it's here. Let's just make it happen. You know.
Oh, I love it. And it's definitely. I'm right along with kind of regenerative systems. Actually, just yesterday we got our composter barrel that I'm really excited about. We're renting right now here in Puerto Rico, and we don't own yet, but we actually just put an offer on a place, a short sale, because we want to own so we can grow food. And so we have, like I think 7 or 8 pots that we're, starting to teach I got 3 kids and starting to teach them about this stuff, but they're very excited about an actual composter barrel, and so we're just the whole idea of one person's trash is another person's treasure, and we can build better systems, just like Buckminster Fuller and others said. Don't try to spend all this energy fixing the current system. Just out innovate, create something brand new, makes the old systems irrelevant and basically archaic. And that's essentially what we're doing with decentralized autonomous communities. And so yeah, my name is Luke Stokes. I've been in the cryptocurrency space for I guess since January 2013. And before that, I got a technology background. I started a company called FoxyCart, which is an e-commerce shopping cart system. And I love technology and how it can be used to increase human well-being. I often tell my programmer friends, if it doesn't impact a conscious creature, then what's the point, right? So it's not just about the cool tech, it's about how it can impact and make a difference in the world. So I'm involved in eosDAC, which is a community-owned block producer on EOS and a DAC enabler. I'm also involved in Steam as a witness there, and involved in lots of different projects, consulting and things like that. I sold my business in 2018 to focus full-time on the blockchain space. And what we thought might be fun to discuss here is how, in a real practical sense, decentralized autonomous community technology can be used to really potentially in the future, hopefully the near future, actually impact how humans do governance on a broader scale. So for example, here in Puerto Rico, if you've been following the news lately, it was an amazing moment in human history. They got rid of a governor who, as most politicians are, was corrupt and, not the greatest human being on the planet, and, by their actions. And so it was amazing though, because it was a peaceful revolution and a whole bunch of people took to the streets. Nobody was arrested. There was no serious damage done. There's some graffiti, but nothing major as far as property damage. There was no major violence in any way. I mean, there was some tear gas and some stuff, but really this is unprecedented. That you can have a change like this. I mean, they shut down the freeway. They had huge, massive protests. Some say hundreds of thousands of people were involved, but it was peaceful and it was amazing. And so people are kind of fed up with the traditional systems. And the interesting part is, like, the next 5 people in line to take over as the governor on this island, the people don't want. And so if you've ever seen that movie, Brewster's Millions, where he's vote for none of the above, campaign for that. That's essentially what we're living right now in Puerto Rico. And it's a great opportunity to start exploring the potential for decentralized autonomous communities as a better model for governance. I actually spoke on Monday at Crypto Mondays about this with the community there. Pedro and I had a little panel discussion about it, and people are getting more and more open to it, more and more interested in other mechanisms that essentially don't involve the threat of violence. I think you'd probably agree with me. That's one of the #1 things that really distorts price discovery and any kind of voluntary interaction, is knowing that one group of people with a special costume and guns get to dominate violently another group of people, and we don't get to create the best systems, like a Nash equilibrium where everyone's gets the best possible benefit they could imagine if they can have enough visibility on all the different options. So I'm very excited about talking to people in government, talking to people in the community about decentralized autonomous communities, and talking to them about how, wouldn't it be interesting if, for example, the money that you put into the system via your taxes was, one, more voluntary, but two, could actually be directed to projects that you care about within your community, and they could be voted on, and they could be transparent, and they could be visible, and there wouldn't be this kind of separate set of books that is kept, or it wouldn't be this high level of corruption where, you know, a third of the people are employed by the government. And I just saw a statistic yesterday, like a whole bunch of them don't even show up to work, you know? So it's kind of ridiculous. And I think everyone knows it goes on, but there's no mechanism for seeing it transparently. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well, as someone looking at it from the outside, looking at what's going on in Puerto Rico, and also in like Barcelona and Cantalone and other places around the world. People are, you know, there's just a sense that they're fed up with central hierarchies that you basically attract corruptible people.
Yeah, I mean, I love that revolt and revolution is kind of taking place, but what I really love about the DAC and DAO concept is that it can be a peaceful overturning, because a revolution is just, if we're trying to oppose violence, violent governance dictating their will violently, how are we going to overcome that story with violence, i.e. a revolution, i.e. like a violent upheaval? You know, we're just repeating that story. We're changing the balance of power, but we're not actually moving forward. What I like about DACs is they're more like a renaissance. And instead of us being violent and angry with an overthrow, we're really enthusiastically, enjoyably creating these new systems that actually work better for literally everyone. I can't find a person who a DAC and a DAO is not going to benefit greatly in their life and things that actually matter. So that's what I like about this renaissance, is everyone can get on board and they're just like, yes, this just makes sense. Let's take the next leap in human evolution and human societies and just move on. You know?
I love it. That's excellent. And so before we kind of, I think what we talked about doing on this call is we'll all demonstrate the eosDAC technology stack that we're building to enable people to have DACs. And then I'd love for you to demonstrate the seed technology that you're working on, also to do regenerative DACs and to kind of focus it even a little bit more into a niche of people who are passionate about systems that, again, can use one person's trash as another person's gold. But before we jump into that, maybe I'll just give like a quick overview of what kind of DACs are as far as the eosDAC model, what we've kind of thought of the base building blocks, kind of the, you know, the atoms, the molecules, the basics of what we think a DAC needs. And then we can kind of, with that framework, once we visualize it, that might bring it all together. So I look at a DAC, we've kind of decided or talked through these definitions of what a DAC is within eosDAC. A DAC being a decentralized, autonomous, and you could say, you know, company, community, corporation, whatever you want, or even DAO as another common term for organization. But by decentralized, we mean no single point of failure, meaning if there's a piece that can just be swapped out and replaced with another piece, then that's great. By autonomous, we don't necessarily mean like AI, although a lot of people do think of that when they talk about DACs and DAOs. Maybe someday in the future, but currently it means a system or a series of functions, smart contracts that are very deterministic, meaning you put in this input, you're going to get this output, and it's going to happen the same way every time. There's not a mechanism where some person, some point of failure can jump in there and say, you know what, today I feel differently, and because my buddy's involved and I want him to be benefited, we're going to just change how this works today. And we just see that in most every other system out there. Any kind of hierarchy where you centralize power and control, there's an opportunity for failure there. It's not resilient in that way. So that autonomous mechanism means that if we want to change that function and how it works, we're going to only do so by the consent of those with skin in the game. And that's a really important part, is that it is modifiable. You can't change it, but it's you know, done by design in a way that you're changing in a way everyone agrees, or at least the majority agrees, or a hyper majority, depending on how you set it up. And then of course the community to me is just a group of people with a shared goal, and anything from an HOA to a neighborhood to a, you know, the levels that this could be used from a corporation to a government to a nonprofit, it's really amazing. It's just literally a group of people with a shared goal. So I'm very excited about the different ways that it can be implemented. And I guess I'll just go ahead and jump in and share my screen a little bit, unless you've got any other bits you want to jump into and clarify as far as like what a DAC is. That's basically it.
No, I think that's, yeah, great terminology.
As you
just a little bit what I'm showing our side, but yeah, I love that. That was beautiful.
As you were talking, I just thought of this post I did a few years ago called The Loop. And it was like, why voting and revolutions don't work. And this is actually the background image on my computer right now. And it's just such a beautiful visualization. It's like, revolution, we're going to take down this dictator. Little do they know, like the system is just out with the old and with the new.
And yeah, and unfortunately, that's what's happening in Puerto Rico right now, which is why we need to get these things out there so that we can move on with this renaissance already.
Yeah. Absolutely. It was a perfect visualization of what it is I think we're dealing with. And so, but people are waking up to this fact. They're recognizing this, going, hey, you know what? Because especially in Puerto Rico, which is even more interesting, the person who just got removed as governor, his dad was the governor before that. And they already went through a round of incredible financial corruption and drama. And they already fired a whole bunch of people in government, which they just did again. So they're kind of like, okay, fool me once, fool me twice, fool me three times. Like, so they already know it wasn't just some text messages. You know, it's the reason why there was such an incredible response is they're like, we already went through this with your dad. We already saw this drama. We already fired a whole bunch of people from government, which they just did again. And yet we found ourselves here again. So I think people they're ready for it. So what we have here is members.eosDAC.io. This is kind of when you first connect with our community, we show you a constitution. And this here is a pretty lengthy document, but this kind of outlines our core principles. This outlines, what is it we're about? What does it mean to be a member of this DAC? And this here is kind of the core of the voluntary nature of this system. This isn't going to be perfect. It's going to have problems and failures, but the idea being it's all open source. So anyone can fork this and create their own community with a different set of rules. So the idea being that anyone who comes here and says, yep, I agree to this group of the shared goal that this community has, and I want to participate in it. They go ahead and read through this and they actually sign it on chain. You can see we're on version 4 here. Any change to this document basically requires everyone to come back and say, yeah, I agree to that change and I'm going to participate and sign it again. And you sign it with your private key, so you can definitely demonstrate that, yeah, I'm the person that's involved in this. And then you can set up your profile. You can see here, I've got my profile. Some people can choose to be anonymous. Some people can choose to, put their name out there, include social links and things like that. Myself, I register as a candidate to be a custodian. And what a custodian is basically like a budget manager or a board of directors, the people that make decisions about the financial direction of the community. Some DACs are completely flat, meaning every single member has a vote and every single action is kind of distributed and voted on by the entire community. And that's more of like a flat democracy. Other people do more of a representational democracy. And that's the eosDAC model can kind of be both depending on how many custodians you want. But we've got it set up right now that you could come in here and vote for custodians. And our setup currently has 12. So you could vote for 12 custodians. And you can see we have many more candidates than those 12. And you can have it set, all this is configurable, but we have it set so in ours, every 7 days, you get a new group of custodians depending on the votes. So you can see right here, today being Thursday, on Monday, there'll be another set of votes. And as of right now, it doesn't look like there'd be any change. If you see one of these people without a little star, in the top 12, that would mean the next election they'll get voted in. And from there, I'm showing you the custodian tools because I'm currently elected as custodian, but there'd be a view DAC activity, which would kind of give you a similar way to look at things. This is where we can see the financials for the DAC. We can set up a proposal to transfer funds. We can modify the constitution. We can change some configurations for the DAC. And all of these create multi-signature proposals. And here you could do a more advanced multi-sig. And these multi-signature proposals show up here. There's a whole bunch that were just actually created in the last day or so. These show up for the custodians to view and make a decision on. So I can go ahead here. I'm going to go ahead and vote on this comms payment. So this is our communication team. They're looking for 840 EOS. Currently, we're doing this in a spreadsheet because we have a full in-depth worker proposal system that is like this close to being ready. We kind of had to put it on pause as we started developing our migration to a hosted DAC Factory system, which includes table scopings and all kinds of technical stuff we don't need to get into. But we're really close to having an on-chain worker proposal system. Until then, we do things through a Google form, and it's all transparent and a Google spreadsheet. So I could come in here and actually, using scatter, sign this actual multi-sig and allow for it. And once that reaches a threshold, so now we've got 1 there, but once it reaches a threshold of 9 for this particular operation, then it can be executed. So it's again a way to come to nonviolent consensus. And this is global consensus. There are people from all over the world, in Asia and England and Europe, all over the place, participating in this process. So it's, and again, at any moment, we can remove custodians if people are starting to make decisions that are not in the best interest of the community. I think I could probably show one here. I think there was one where somebody, yeah, you can see this one has 0 of 9. I think they were trying to get 262,000 EOS. Well, the community didn't really think that was a good price to pay for a marketer. So that one obviously, thankfully, has nobody supporting it. And then, of course, we also have payments here. These are, the custodians are a paid position in our model. So I can come in here and claim payment for my role as a custodian, but that's all completely configurable however you want to do it. But any member of the community can come in here and say, hey, you know what, I'd like to participate. I'd like to, if they come in here to eosDAC, they can actually say, hey, I want to join the DAC, or I want to submit a worker proposal. And this, again, this is just what we're using now. It's just a simple form, but it's kind of saying, hey, I'd like to, as an employee almost, add value to this community and then get paid for it. And you can see here, these are all the proposals that we've actually paid out over the last, year plus that we've been a DAC. And I think, there's quite a few hundred here actually at this point. And so it's not ideal being in a spreadsheet and all that, but eventually this is going to be all on chain. You can see we've got hundreds here that have been paid out. And there's actually other spreadsheets for discussing amongst the custodians what makes sense, what should be paid out, what shouldn't be paid out. And as far as the elections go, it's when these 12 are updated, when a new period is called, actually on chain, what it's doing is modifying this authority account. So you can see here, I want to dive into a little bit into the technical weeds here, because it's important to understand that it's easy for these systems to be kind of smoke and mirrors. You got a pretty application with a pretty interface and you think, oh, cool. But then you have like the DAO hack in Ethereum where the code had a compromise and millions of dollars lost and everyone's like, wait, what? I thought I could trust this, And so, and that's funny actually to show you this at this very moment, because this key was just added yesterday because we're about to do some maintenance. So normally this key would not exist, but it was an agreement by the whole community. And I could show you the multi-sig to add this key in so that Michael Yates could run a whole bunch of scripts he needs to run. And all those scripts are going to be on chain and transparent. We're going to be able to validate each and every step that he did. And then we're going to go ahead and resign that key as well. But generally that key wouldn't be there. But what you would see is the active for this account is defined by these different roles, high, medium, and low. And every time a set of custodians are elected, the top vote getters basically get set on this multi-sig. And if you want to change the constitution, change the code, you're gonna need 10 of 12 people to agree. If you want to transfer funds, it's gonna be 9 of 12. And eventually when we get the worker proposal system working, it'll be 7 of 12 to approve a worker proposal or to vote on a worker proposal. So it's really, a really robust permission system. And why this is important is if you go into like the DAC custodian account where voting is done and you look at the permissions here, you can see that this account has no keys at all. The authority for these accounts, and this is true for all the different accounts, the token account, the owner account, where all the money is held, all that kind of stuff, is controlled by DAC authority. And this is something too I wanted to highlight just real quick in relation to the DAO hack that happened on Ethereum, where they had a code bug and it caused millions of dollars to be stolen from the community. In this case, if the code wants to send a transfer, and this is just a transfer link authorization permission, it only gets 1 wait, but you need a wait of 2 to do the transfer. And the way that it gets that second wait is with this 60-minute delay. So essentially all financial transfers that are initiated by the code itself get to sit out on the network for 60 minutes. And we have scripts that run that just watch those and check them and say, hey, is somebody trying to drain the account of all the money? And if that's the case, then we can actually cancel that deferred transaction before it happens and protect the community. This is one of the really neat things about the EOS ecosystem is this isn't like a code level thing. This is a base level permissions as part of the blockchain system itself. So this is as trusted as the entire chain, which is, obviously got billions of dollars of value behind it, with Block One and all the other block producers around the world that are supporting it. So it's stuff like this that kind of caused us to move to build this on EOS. Michael Yates and others that tried to work this out on Ethereum, they realized like the amount of gas costs and the immutability of the contracts and the permission system would have made the whole thing very, very difficult to do and very expensive for the participants. Whereas in this case, you could just take a little RAM, a little CPU and bandwidth, and every time, you saw me voting, it's super easy, super simple, and there's no fees related to that. So it's that's a brief and amazing overview of the eosDAC technology stack. There's a whole lot more involved as far as the different contracts and everything. But I think that's enough to kind of give a basic idea of what's going on. And again, what we're moving towards is a DAC factory where anyone can generate these. So I could show you, for example, yeah, Crown Club has one up. They're doing some really cool customer engagement projects. There's also Vigor, which is up, which is like a stable token on EOS. There are a number of these projects that are going to start using this technology, and hopefully, eventually, governments. You know, hopefully, eventually, we're going to get to the place where, you know, it's not going to just be for little projects to make money or little, you know, nonprofits here and there, but eventually people, I think, are going to start demanding this. They're going to start saying, hey, you know what? I pay all this money into my government and I expect all these services. I want them to be transparent. I want to see what they're spending my money on, and I want to know what's going on. And I think these tools are going to help. And when we get to the point where, you know, everyone has these in their wallets and they can be able to just go in and vote really easily from a beautiful interface that they're familiar with, that's going to be an amazing moment. I think that's going to change everything. So that's my kind of brief and amazing overview, and I'd love for you to.
Yeah, no, I love this, and I want to make it really real for maybe the people watching. Could you walk us through how this could right now replace our governance systems? How do we pass a law, for example? How do we fund the building of roads? Everyone wants to know. How do we build the roads?
Yeah. I have a shirt that says "Roads" that my friend bought me. It's hilarious.
Yeah, there you go. So could you walk us through building some roads in a DAC world?
Excellent. Yeah, it's actually a good example because I mean, it's funny as that meme is, the roads. If you've ever seen, and there's actually one going right now in Puerto Rico. Have you ever seen a large road project happening and you see like eminent domain where people, you know, their land is being taken from them so they could build the road? It's an incredibly challenging process to get consensus on. I mean, you got to imagine all these people that are just like, wait, you're going to take part of my front yard? I remember when we lived in Nashville, we saw this as that city's growing so quickly. You know, getting consensus from all the participants is very difficult. And then there was another example that I thought was interesting where they wanted to build this like natural gas compressor plant. And there was a lot of protests about it. People were frustrated about it. And it's another example. It's very difficult to get consensus. They don't want it there, but the pipelines run right through there and they kind of don't have a choice. They have to build it there. And so in these different examples, what I get excited about is when you tokenize something in the real world and you put it on a blockchain, you create these incredible emergent properties that are new potentialities. And so, for example, with roads or with the, you know, gas pipeline, you know, that we have to build a compressor plant, you could actually take a system and say, okay, well, here's the geographic area of people impacted by this compressor plant, for example. And you could airdrop a token on all of them. And that token would almost be like an insurance claim, a bond that they're going to put in you. And you could say, okay, if something bad happens, I'm going to be made whole with all this money that's already locked up in a smart contract. And I can either, you know, be cool with that or not. And if I think that, you know, I don't really care, then I'll just sell the bond. And now I get to extract that value immediately. I go, you know, buy a car, whatever, you know. And the idea being that we could tokenize some of these risks that are generally not spread out in an equitable way. And those who want to participate in something that would add risk to their local community can actually do so on-chain in a provable way. The money would be locked up. It wouldn't be in such a way where you're like, wait, but are you really going to pay me out when push comes to shove? Is that insurance claim really going to get accepted? And then the next obvious question is, well, who controls the private key for that system when there's that contract, that smart contract code on a blockchain? And that's where I think a DAC is super important. Then that local community.
Let's not all forget all the human lives who are doing these very tedious and menial jobs of managing that entire process. I mean, these are real humans who are spending their days doing paperwork to manage this process. That's a terrible waste of human life. But
yeah. Oh man, and it's soul sucking and destroying. People hate their jobs and they dread Mondays. You know, they celebrate Fridays, and that's just no way to live. You know. So yeah, definitely being able to let computers do what they do well, which is, you know, process data and analyze this kind of stuff and put it in a format that's transparent is beautifully important. With the other example with roads, it'd be a matter of, you know, actually rewarding the people who had maybe their land taken in such a way that they're like, oh wow, every single time a car goes by, it's got, you know, a little transponder in the car that automatically flips a little bit of crypto my way, because I was the one that enabled this to happen. And same thing with the people who built the roads, the same thing with people who planned the roads. Lots of times when people talk about who's going to build the roads, they talk about you know, the same, I always answer, you know, who's going to build the roads in a voluntary society? The same people who build them now, the actual road builders, not the politicians, you know? But it's just the idea that if we can have a shared goal to say, you know what, I would like a better road. I would like these potholes fixed. I would like, you know, a better way to get to my job. How can I come together as a community, put that up as a proposal and say, well, here's what I'd like to see happen. Here's where, you know, here's how much money it's going to cost. Here's the people that are going to be bidding to actually accomplish it. Here's how it's going to, you know, negatively impact certain pieces of our community. Like that guy's going to lose his house, for example. We got to plow through that yard. Here's how we're going to make that guy whole. We're going to give him an incentive to do something great for the whole community. And he's going to maybe get more money than the market value of his house if we all really value this and it's important to us. And you can put all these things on chain completely transparently. And then again, those who are most trusted by the community, those who have the most skin in the game, as far as the token that represents the governance of that community, elect custodians, and the custodians ultimately make a decision. That's one model. Another model would be flat democracy, where everybody votes, and then, you know, you just kind of tally it up and see what the answer is. And I think there, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, each model has great value. The challenge, I think, with direct democracy that we've seen is, on large groups, people are very influenced by people like you and me, people that are charismatic, that are fine hopping on camera and, you know, being the politician type person. They're like, oh, that guy's cool. I'll agree with whatever he says. And they just don't take personal responsibility to say, oh no, I actually have to do research and you know, vote in a good way. And so they're just kind of like, oh yeah, whatever commercial I saw, I'll just, yeah, okay, yes on that proposal. As opposed to saying, you know what, I don't know all what's going on, but I've done enough research to know that that person knows what's going on that category. Maybe they're good at smart contracts. Maybe they're good at sustainable development, whatever it might be. And then I say, you know, I'm going to proxy my vote to them and I'm going to watch them and I make sure that they do what's important. All right, so you got some notes here. Jump on it.
Nah, ignore them. Those are for me.
No, it's good stuff. I think I love how you keep bringing it back to practical examples. I mean, that's where, you know, I try to remind people, kind of like early days in the internet, like mid 90s or so, as far as this technology. It's difficult to use. Most people don't understand it. It's kind of confusing. And cryptocurrency and blockchains, especially DAC technology, is in that same category. So a lot of people who get it are just like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. I want this tomorrow or yesterday. And we're still trying to, you know, like I said, finish the worker proposal system, things like that. But at the same time, I think it's inevitable. Just like the internet, I think it's going to happen. It's going to become more commonplace. And people are going to start thinking about, hey, you know, why build a startup when I could build a community? You know, why build something that is going to need me to be there all the time to make sure it goes? Instead, I could just set up a constitution. Here's what I have in mind. Here's my intent. And then have a community run with it. And then I could maybe go do 5 more in different areas. And I don't have to, like an organism, you know, if it's actually sustainable, it will then live on and reproduce after its own kind.
Well, what's really great about this is people then get to better focus on what their actual passion is in this new paradigm. Where in our current paradigm with the startup culture, maybe someone's really passionate about the ideation process and building a certain tech, but then they have to step into this role as business owner and accountant and lawyer and all these other roles that they don't care about, they don't actually want to play, but they're kind of forced into it because they're required to do that in this very isolated, siloed system that we've designed. Where if we get much more open, much more inclusive, much more rewarding of people just for contributing, then you could step into all these different communities, give that same thing that you're truly passionate about and get rewarded from all these fronts. And you're not having to like go into those places that you don't enjoy doing and do stuff you don't want to do, you know?
It's so true. It's so important. And I've thought about this often in terms of some startups, some entrepreneurs, they will want to do a startup, but then they'll realize they actually have to do like 3 or 4 startups just to support the main thing they're actually passionate about. But they don't care about these other things, but they find themselves having to build them because no one else is doing it right in a way that would support their main passion. And so when I start talking to entrepreneurs like that, I say, well, how about you build DACs for these things? So they will go and run and do their thing. And now you've got this trusted vendor that you could use for your main passion that you can trust. And people connect to that idea. And I think that's really exciting to me.
Yeah, amazing.
One of the ways I think this makes sense to me is when it's fractal, when it's like when it replicates what we see in nature. You know, where again these little systems that, you know, reproduce after themselves. And I feel like, you know, Bitcoin did that and produced all these altcoins like EOS, and then EOS is producing all these other chains, all these other EOS IO based chains, and then eosDAC built on top of EOS is going to produce all these other DACs. And, so I think it's a great transition into, I'd love to know more about your technology stack, what you guys are building. You gave me a quick demo the other day, which was just amazing. So it just blew my mind how much is going on in the space. And it's so hard to keep up with it all. I've heard a little bit about what you're doing, but to actually see it, I'm like, holy moly, this is awesome. So I definitely want the eosDAC community to know about it and share about it more, because it seems really amazing.
Yeah, the favorite thing we're doing with decentralized governance is actually seeds. So I'll talk briefly on that because that's where Hypha, which is our DAO, became important. So seeds is an alternative financial system. So it's a system that's run by all the people that actually alters how we reward behaviors in our society. Meaning, today our central banks made about $12 trillion in the last decade. Everyone listening to this probably is very familiar with this. And the concept here is, you didn't get any of that money for participating in these economic models. We didn't get to decide how any of that money was spent. And a lot of that value actually went towards destroying our planet. We've spent $5.2 trillion subsidizing oil and gas industries so they could be cheaper than renewable energies so that we can continue off this very destructive, unsustainable path. So we're using collective resources, humanity's collective wealth, to destroy our planet, and it's absurd. So what we need is just very opt-in alternatives to this. And that's where we get excited about decentralized governance, because it's creating our own financial system that we govern and that we manage. And we can alter the behavior of it. I mean, I said at the beginning of this call that, I think blockchain can fix my computer breaking problem. It's a very obscure thing to say, but then let me take a step back. Right now, companies have an incentive to make products that break down because they only make money when they sell goods and services. And one time we used to build things that were magnificent and lasted a long time, but then companies got smart and were like, wait, if they're using that product for 20 years, they're not going to buy my new one. So we're going to make sure that these things break down every 3 years so we keep buying more stuff. And that's just the incentives of our financial system. That's how they're designed. They reward price and they reward purchase. They don't reward use necessarily. But we could change that. We could put a little non-fungible token within your computer, and we could track how much use that computer is actually getting and reward the manufacturer for how much their products are being used, not how much products they're selling. So now we can rewire that incentive to make products that last as long as possible, because that's going to generate more revenue for you over time. So we can actually change our financial system, say, hey, part of that $12 trillion, we're going to give out to organizations based on certain behaviors that we're looking for. One of them could be, are you regenerating our planet? Are you taking care of this massive crisis that we're facing as humanity? If you're addressing that, here's some of our wealth. Hey, are you making products that last? Are you providing access and services that humanity needs? Cool, we're going to reward you for that. There's so many projects that I hear people have that they're amazing and they would benefit humanity greatly if they happened, but they can't figure out how to make money from them. And that's an absurd thing. I mean, if our economic models are built to focus human will and behavior on things that are going to benefit humanity, that's a massively missed opportunity. So
I totally agree. Like some of these, when they talk about economics and economy, they're supposed to economize and use resources in a rational way to benefit.
Yeah.
And so much of our systems today aren't that, unfortunately. But and there's some really cool projects out there, like the Sustainable Development Goals, where they're saying, okay, if we were to get all these local businesses to understand, if we were to plant mangroves here, we would stop this, storm surge that happens and destroys your businesses and costs you X millions of dollars every year. Like we can provably demonstrate. You're going to spend $45 million anyway over the next X years dealing with these, storm surge. Instead, why not spend fewer millions of dollars, plant these mangroves, and actually have a buffer that nature intended? And then they're like, wait, yeah, okay. And then not only that, you can have that tokenized and reward your customers with that token as they purchase your product, knowing that they were participating in improving their planet. Oh, now there's your marketing budget, and it's just, there's so many beautiful opportunities.
Yes, I love that. Yes, so much. And where we see, within the seed side, where we see DAOs, we call it DAOs, but we also say DACs and DASs. So we say DAS for Decentralized Autonomous Society. And that's thinking this on a global level. It's one global society within the seeds ecosystem, right? But then we have DACs, we use the same terminology, community. And that looks more at the local level. So we have this fractaling system where you have one big one, but then we got these fractaled smaller ones that manage different scales of governance, and we call those DACs. And then within those, you can have an infinite number of DAOs. So how this reflects is, think of like a DAS is the United States, DACs is like Utah, California, Nevada, and then DAOs is all the companies that exist in America, you know, Coca-Cola, Amazon, etc. So we can replace all of these systems with these decentralized alternatives that give more voice and value to the people who are operating them. Just makes sense.
That's beautiful. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we're just, yep, perfect. That's our terminology. Plus, I really love the DAO concept because it's pulling off of Lao Tzu and the Tao and the DAO, and the DAO is the way. And there's this concept that the next wave and form of enlightenment will be people coming together around a collective purpose and cause, and then sharing that vision and moving together with it. And that will create enlightenment for those groups, then spread it. So I think it's so beautiful that we've called the way, the DAO is also the way, because this is a way for collective, you know, groups of people to come around a shared purpose. And this can happen on a global level. I mean, DAOs are global. I mean, imagine what we could do if we could get 7 billion minds like focused on a shared goal. I mean, that would just be...
It's amazing. Yeah, what I like even too, just as you're describing the way you've used the terminology and the way you've structured it and the way it connects to the DAO and the way it's reminding me of, like, you've got atoms and they eventually create, you know, different cells in the body, and then these cells specialize and you have these different organs that are kind of coalescing around a shared goal. And then those organs then create this, you know, incredible kind of symbiotic relationship with all the other organs to create this entity. But then even within this entity, I've got, you know, a whole number of cells that are not even human cells, you know, it's just this incredible connection. And then of course, as a human being, I'm a social creature, so I'm connected to all other human beings, and there's some kind of, you know, conscious connection there as well. And so it's really beautiful to think, like, let's model this after what's worked for millions and millions and millions of years. You know, let's go with systems that function very, very well and replicate them. And I just love that idea that at the lowest level of the DAO in your model, you know, it's still a group of people together, but it's also kind of like somewhat individual. It's not just kind of, we're going to start at the top up and tell everybody down what to happen. It's going to be an emergent property from the bottom up. Because those DAOs are going to then decide what type of DAC they want to work under. And those DACs are going to then be emergent properties, define the DAS. And I love that terminology. That's very cool.
Yeah, thanks. And oh my God, I mean, it's such a perfect parallel to our human systems too. And you could think of these DAOs and DACs and DASs as the different organs and structures in your body. Yes, but then if humanity is coming together, what does that actually look like? It's some form of metahuman. I mean, we're much more than the sum of our organs. We're this other conscious creature. What is that conscious creature that is all the organs of humanity coming together? I don't know, but we're gonna find out in a couple centuries, I'm sure. Maybe sooner. So that's what we're building over at Seeds, is more of an alternative financial system and society. But we thought, okay, well, how can a centralized organization of the, you know, 12, 20 of us putting work into this make something decentralized? Well, we can. So that's our point of failure, is a centralized company behind it. So we thought, okay, well, we actually need to decentralize our organization, our organism, in order to actually make this decentralized financial system. So that's where Hypha comes in. So Hypha literally is the last filament of mycelial webs. It's just one of the hairs. So we just kind of imagine Hypha being just one part of this huge mycelial web that's connecting everything together. We're just playing our own little web hair there. So I'll show that off. We're really inspired by Halakhah and that form of governance that works within centralized organizations to distribute power more evenly. And I really love that framework. So that's kind of where we started with our idea here. All right, can you see that?
Yeah, it's coming in good.
Awesome. So ours isn't quite as beautiful as yours. We just threw this together in the last month because again, part of our roadmap was decentralizing our organization, but our real focus is on building Seeds and that whole ecosystem. And that's starting off as a mobile app. So we're putting a lot of our intention there, but we felt like we needed to throw this up to make sure that we're building this the appropriate way. So a cool part about Halakhah is this term that the role is not the soul. So it doesn't see humans as parts of an organization. It sees roles as parts of an organization. So we take this figure and we say, okay, what roles do we need to help this organization thrive? And then we would create those things. So if you click on the roles tab, you actually see some of the roles that we need, like, okay, blockchain developer, architect, a publisher, influencer, advisor, maybe a visual dataization, decision-making, etc. Someone to do monetary and economic designs. So these are roles that we needed within Hypha to bring about Seeds. But what happens is then someone could fill that role, and he's filling this role at 20% right now. But 4 other people could fill this role with him and help collaborate together to empower this role to meet its purpose. And its purpose is, you know, research, craft, and oversee economic models. So anyone in the world right now, actually today, can show up to the Hypha DAO, come in here, look at the roles and say, okay, what am I passionate about? What is my purpose? What could I, you know, how could I contribute to this and apply for this role? And now what that means is you're actually getting compensated for that role. So it shows what the salary for this role is right up here. So, right, yeah.
And I love that we talked about this briefly when you showed this to me. I love that you're already thinking in a multi-currency mindset. You're already thinking about competing currencies. You're already thinking about rewards in multiple dimensions. And so you have multiple tokens involved, voice, Hypha, precedes. You know, at first it was a little confusing, but as you kind of broke it down to me, how that works, it's beautiful. And to connect this for any of the eosDAC people watching, this is kind of like a worker proposal in reverse. And we've had a number of people ask for this feature request on our technology stack, and we will eventually create this where the DAC itself can say, you know, no one's submitting this as a role they want to, you know, something they want to do to get paid for, but we know it's a need we have, so we can publish it out there as a role, something that needs to be done. And I like that you've got this set up that you even have a level of bandwidth where we know this is going to probably take about 5 people to do it right. And you kind of preload it that way. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. And what I really thought, well, what we really thought was necessary too, was separating the difference between voice and value. So currently a lot of crypto economic models says the more wealth you have, the more voice you have. And what unfortunately happens then is then we're concentrating wealth and value. The people who have wealth get greater voice, they vote things in their favor, they obtain more wealth, and it's this feedback loop that ultimately concentrates the wealth within these organizations, which is what we're seeing with, you know, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a lot of the others. So we've actually separated that out. We say, okay, you can earn value, and that's in the form of these tokens that will have a secondary market, and you could sell them. But there's this other token, which we represent as voice. And this is something you earn through other forms of contribution. So your weight and voice in the governance is based on how many of these voice tokens that you hold. And you earn these tokens through empowering roles, doing different proposals and filling them through. So you actually earn it through adding other forms of value rather than economic value to this organism, which is who we actually want calling shots anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Now, are those non-transferable tokens?
Right. So these here are completely non-transferable, and they just sit inside that account and they stack up. So the more of them you earn, the greater your voice is over time. But actually will probably be decreasing relative to everyone else because more people are joining, earning more voice tokens. So how much you're holding relative to everyone else is going to gradually decrease. So what we've done is we created a feedback loop that decreases concentration of voice over time and further spreads it out as we grow. So we didn't want the opposite, where fewer and fewer people had the power. We wanted where more and more people have the power.
And the beautiful thing about that model as well is that it rewards those with influence who are currently active. If someone did something a year ago, and we appreciate that, we respect that, it's wonderful. But as far as governance goes, they may not be completely on board with what's happening today and what's most needed by the community today. And those who are actively participating, earning more voice today, naturally you're going to have more understanding and influence about the decisions that are for today. So I think that's beautiful.
100%. Yeah, we built in this natural waning. So you're not going to lose your voice like you're just pointing out, but how much you're holding relative to everyone else, if you're not gaining any, is going to decrease over time, which is perfect. So we're just focusing that voice on those who are bringing the most value, and that's our way of quantifying it. So then we have people in here that are earning pre-seeds, and these are the tokens that come before seeds, and that's for the seeds ecosystem. But then they're also earning Hypha, which is an equity token within the Hypha system. So Hypha and seeds, they're 2 separate things. Hypha is an organization that's going to carry on after launching seeds to launch other applications and things. And seeds is going to be completely run by its own DAC DAO system. Yeah. And then you can hop over here and see who the members are. So this is how you get a sense of who's behind it. You can scroll through here, see different bios of the people participating. And of course, anyone else can join and get thrown up here as well. And then we have an open proposal system.
Just to back up just a little bit, what's the technology stack that this is built on right now?
So our chain is Telos right now. So a lot of it is still EOSIO, but this is live on the Telos testnet. Pardon me, mainnet. The rest of that, I know we use Quasar for the design, but your guys looked really good, so I was really into that.
We're actually using Quasar as well. But this is exciting. I know some people involved in Telos, and I hadn't seen any applications built on it. I've heard that I mean, this is from someone who actually works with them, that, yeah, the language is a little difficult to work with as far as building smart contracts. But this is incredible. Like this, so this isn't just fluff. This is actually talking to smart contracts to interact with the chain, set up these profiles, set up the roles, you know, all of this. So there's actual on-chain transactions happening here. Is that correct?
Yeah. Wow. This is all live right now.
Beautiful.
You could say the hashes and everything. Look in the details. But yeah, but also we only just launched this 2 days ago. So this is really new, really fresh. You see all the roles or the proposals we have up right now are the first active proposals on the system. So this is literally the very beginning of this. And also the UIs. Yeah, thanks. So this is what we wanted to do. We said, okay, how do we actually build an open financial system? Well, we needed to decentralize our organization behind it. And this is what I see is the future of organizations, like you're pointing out. You're not starting a startup where it's the 12 of you and then you wait to go to IPO or whatever. You're setting up a protocol, you're putting out a vision and an intention, and you're just using that as a body to attract all the other people who are aligned to that vision, being like, yes, we also would like to create a regenerative society. Like, I've been looking for this. I mean, we've had so many of these awesome conversations where people are like, yes, I want to participate. How do I join? And the answer is now just, yeah, show up to the DAO, see what roles are available. If there's not one for you, propose a new role. Well, who gets to vote on that? Well, all the rest of the members that are in it. So just connect with the community, tell them what you want to do, hype everyone up, do your role, and start making it happen. So there's this vehicle now that's able to have a global consensus, like you're pointing out, like this global organization. I mean, our membership now represents the whole globe. I mean, Europe, Africa, Asia, North America. It's like, we can't get on a call at the same time. It's practically impossible, but we can still organize around a shared purpose and, you know, activate ourselves to do what we want to do on a global level, which is just really, really cool.
This is fantastic. So within the Hypha DAO, obviously, and this is the same with eosDAC right now, like all of our, kind of like an early startup, all of our financial activity is kind of in reinvestment, right? We're investing in our technology. We're investing in, you know, marketing, translation, definitely a big focus on the DAC Factory, which is going to be our hosted solution for creating DACs. But because you're a more directed, focused entity, how do you see this evolving in the future in terms of like, what are the types of projects that you see are going to be funded in the sustainable development world that would be kind of supported by this framework? That you know, what is this holding space for? And could you give some examples of how once you get this set up and get it more, you know, the entity itself becomes healthy, that it can support other entities? What would be some examples of sustainable development projects you'd like to see with this?
Yeah, cool. So yeah, so exciting. So Hypha is going to launch Seeds. Boom, it's out there. And Hypha is going to interact with Seeds a lot. One of the things that happens within Seeds is people who build applications or organizations who are providing a value that people are finding valuable are able to earn revenue without charging fees. Because this is part of that 12 trillion that central banks made. They're like, hey, 2 trillion to organizations doing good in the world. Cool. So what we're going to do as Hypha is make applications for that intention. One of the first ones being a peer-to-peer food system that doesn't charge any fees. That's been a big holdup with local food platforms, is if you're selling food to your neighbor and there's a 10% platform fee, well, the second day, maybe not even the first day, you're going to avoid the platform deal direct hand in cash because it's better to do so. You're not going to pay the 10% to Bob, your neighbor, for his pie. But if the platform was actually better to use than paying in cash, then we could actually divert a lot of our economic activity through this platform, which is what Seed's intention is. It's not, its intention isn't to take fees. Its intention is to get people out of those, you know, I don't like saying it directly like this because I'm not trying to create a target here or a competitor necessarily, but get people out of those government-backed currencies, the ones that are fueling the degeneration of our planet, into these alternative currencies that are fueling the regeneration of our planet. And how we do that is by making it better in every single way possible. You're not paying fees, you're getting rewarded. Wait, what? No longer fees, I'm actually getting rewarded for doing it? It sounds like a scam. Like, no, check it out. The Federal Reserve's a scam, so.
Yeah, it's like, I always chuckle with people like, oh, Bitcoin, that's a Ponzi. And I'm like, if you actually understood what a Ponzi scheme is, you'd recognize that there's a reason your purchasing power for the US dollar has basically gone to nothing in the last 100 years. I just like pulling back the veil and exposing this to people. It is very easy to get into that kind of us versus them mentality of like, we're the good guys, they're the bad guys. And what I've been, especially recently, trying to do is just kind of reset my judgments and recognize, you know what, these are all systems that got us here, you know, democracy is the worst form of governance, except all the others, right? As Churchill famously said, it's like, yeah, you know, we had full-on totalitarian states, and then we had, you know, feudalism, we had monarchy. You know, I just feel like we're in this natural progression as a species, coming up with better systems that work. And yeah. I think the DAC model and better form of money and currency, it really is just a ledger. It's a way for keeping track of human value. And I go even deeper to say it's storytelling. Really, I mean, the Federal Reserve has so much power. These government institutions for financial wealth have so much power because they tell the best stories and they back them with big aircraft carriers, guns. They use fear. It's a very powerful motivator.
It's a very compelling story too.
What's that?
It's a very compelling story. If you don't believe in it, you can end up in a lot of pain.
Oh yeah, they put you in a cage. You know, it's just ridiculous. So I think that, you know, that power of storytelling is really what all of this is about. If we were to kind of dumb it down to its most basic levels, we're taking back the power to tell effective stories for humans in the way that they value their time, their attention, their energy, their action. You know, it's moments away from my 3 kids. It's time I'm sitting here on my computer instead of, you know, exploring some beach or something here in Puerto Rico. It's, you know, it's like this time and attention is valuable. And, you know, we spend all this time away from our families doing work in many cases, unfortunately, that we hate to get little pieces of paper or numbers in a bank account that don't mean anything, but it's just the story behind it that makes us go, well, we can at least pay our rent with it. And so if we start closing that economic loop of saying, hey, you know, all the vendors you use as a business, you know, what if they'll start taking seed tokens? You know, all those customers that come to you, what if they're okay with paying in seed tokens? And you start closing the loop where people can pay their rent. They can, you know, you know, fuel in their cars, or, you know, hopefully get, you know, regenerative electricity for their electrical, you know, vehicles, whatever, or ride sharing even better, you know, like all these things are going to start being incentivized better human activity because we get to tell the stories, you know, whether it's an eosDAC coin or a seed coin or whatever coin, you know, it's that power exists and we can finally take it back for ourselves.
Oh yeah. And we can tell better stories. I mean, I've been talking to a lot of people, and the stories we're talking about is one of a regenerative future where we're more connected with the land and it's abundant and lush and green. And we're not having these crazy jobs that we're going to that we hate or dispassionate about, but we're actually spending more time with our purpose and what really gets us fired up and excited and like full of life. And that's what we're doing with our lives. Like that's what's possible. And that's what we could do with our new story. We just need to fully believe it and step into it. And what's so powerful about this movement is providing all these tools that can make it really simple. I mean, because what I think is a really good hijack model by bringing in the financial system is that's so much of our behaviors are based on financial incentives. So if we could say, okay, here's this really cool new story, but people are like, okay, how much is it going to cost? It's like, actually, you're going to make money doing it. Wait, you're telling me I can have all that and I'm going to make more money? Yes. Oh, well, now it's a scam. It's like, nope, it's not. It's real. Let's do it. You know?
It's so beautiful too, because I think it also connects into some of the core principles of human motivational psychology. And this idea that, you know, in the Prussian model of education, you had to build compliant factory workers who could pull a lever, you know, a gazillion times a day. And you know, extrinsic motivation works really well in that model to just be like, yeah, you know, we'll pay you more to pull that lever faster and harder and more efficiently until you die, you know, and instead, we're now in an economy where it's like we're rewarding service-based activity, creative activity, you know, value creation activity, and that requires a completely different motivational model. We need intrinsic motivation. They've done studies on this where, you know, kids that would like to draw and create art, they stop once you start paying them, you know, and so this idea is I think we're going to play with that beautiful kind of in-between model where, yes, we're going to tokenize all the things for the transparency, for the immutability, for the trusted story you get on a blockchain, and at the same time, and I think like your voice token is a good example, you know, we're going to create these non-transferable symbols basically that tell a better story that ultimately aren't kind of a financial motivation. We're not going to destroy that intrinsic motivation. We're going to help it grow and prosper. And at the same time, you know, recognize you still got to eat, right? You still got to pay your rent. You still got to pay your mortgage. You know, there's still a real economic realities in the current, you know, dimensional, you know, existence we're in. So it's going to be very, very interesting to walk that fine line of like, tokenize all the things, show me the blocks so it didn't happen, you know, put it up, putting everything on the blockchain, and at the same time recognizing that we have to find a way to really engage kind of like a Burning Man gift economy type mentality and saying, hey, we're going to do this because it's our creative act. It's our expression of love and compassion and empathy for our fellow community, and not destroy that art by saying, oh, sweet, and how much do I owe you? You know, like that's what I ran my own business. People can definitely label me a capitalist or an anarcho-capitalist or whatever term you want to use. But I still recognize that, like, when I hang out with my wife, you know, or she makes me a meal, I'm not like, okay, how much did that cost? Like, there are social aspects of how our society run, even if you're fully in the capitalist camp, you know? So I think it's just going to be this beautiful merge of a shared collaborative, you know?
I'm so happy you said that, because it's taking both of them and putting them together. I mean, capitalism, the story is do what's best for me over what's best for everyone else. Communism's the story of do what's best for everyone else over what's best for me. Both of those aren't great stories. So what the DAC story and this collaborative ownership story is do what's best for me because it's best for everyone else. And it's this story where we're collectively moving together, and it's not an either or proposition. It's not a win-lose paradigm anymore. It's a win-win. And we're saying, okay, actually we're in this together. We're doing this together and we win together. And DACs can then collectively own assets. I mean, you talk about paying mortgage, but when you pay your mortgage, you're paying double to the bank. That's ludicrous. We can have a DAC that owns assets and buys up a house for someone, lets them rent it at cost, and still is gaining more money. And that money they're just gaining off that lease, then they just buy up another house and give that to another person. In this way, we can slowly take over a place and not pay double for our mortgages and start collectively owning things and have access to more stuff.
While at the same time rewarding the risk takers, you know, and actually properly allocating and say, look, that is real risk. The person who's willing to, you know, be responsible for liability, insurance, like all the things that go along with that. Like I have a rental property, and it was very interesting talking to some kind of anarcho-communists about that. And I was like, yeah, and there was a $50,000 worth of fire that happened there that I had to take ownership of, and you think my tenants had to deal with that? No, of course not. You know, and they're like, oh, and it kind of reset their whole thinking. They're like, oh gosh, yeah, that would really suck. You know, I'm like, well, yeah, like being a landowner isn't this like, you know, it's like there's risk there too. If that could be properly rewarded in a way that made an equitable solution. And again, this is why I get so excited about tokenomics. It's just the radical transparency, the Ray Dalio model of like making everything transparent in a way that we can evaluate it. When a lot of people talk about blockchains or even like private blockchains, so like, you know, what value is there? I don't get it. And I'm like, well, not a huge fan of private blockchains. I think it's almost a misnomer, but I do like how when we put these systems out there, as far as making the data accessible, even if maybe it's permission on who can add data to it, which again is why I don't like that term, but it solves the coordination problem in game theory, where it's like, how can I look at all the actors and all the pieces and decide what makes the most sense for all of us? And then we can get to a Nash equilibrium, get to a place where I like the term psychological egoism. It's like where it's not really altruism, it's just selfishly, I want to do what's best for me because that benefits everybody around me. And I actually want to live in a world where people are awesome. You know what I mean? I want to walk down the street and see all these incredible enlightened beings around me. And so selfishly, I want to help everybody because that's the world I want to live in. That's the world I want to leave for my kids, you know?
Yeah, 100%. So much.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. This has been a super awesome conversation. I think probably one of my favorites that I've had in recent memory. And I'm really looking forward to sharing this with our mutual communities and with other people who are just like curious. What are DACs? You know, what are DAOs? What are DASs? That was a new term I hadn't heard, which I love. And just kind of helping people recognize that, yes, it's early days. You know, yes, there's a lot of technical details to still figure out, usability improvements, all that kind of stuff, helping people understand wallets and how to interact with them. But it's coming, and we want to help people know it's coming.
And we need those other perspectives too. Yes. Everyone has a role to play here. I mean, if these are going to be the systems of the future, everyone needs to be part of creating them, every single one. So if you're a technologist, great, come over here and code stuff. But if you're just a humanist, if you just like people, if you like art, we need all of those parts. We need this to be beautiful. We need this to be engaging. We need this to actually understand how humans interact. So we stay not so close down to the code level. We need everyone's perspective to come to this creative process so that it can be the best system for all of us. that's why it's so important for them to be open, because if we're building this for the future, we all need to be doing it. So like, if you feel like you don't have a role to play, that's BS. There's absolutely a role for every single person to play, because this is for all of us.
Definitely. What, why don't you go ahead and just like promote some URLs or places people can go, your communities, whether that's in Discord, Telegram, wherever it is, where people can do exactly that. And again, just bringing your time and attention is valuable. Just showing up and saying, hey guys, what you're doing is great. You know, beautiful goddesses, what you're doing is great. This is amazing. I just want you to know it's awesome. And I'm just here to be a cheerleader even. And then you might find yourself all of a sudden going, oh, well, I could do that. You know, I've done meal prep. I've done this, I've done that. And all of a sudden you realize that, no, you're there for a purpose. So yeah, let people know how can they get involved in seeds.
And that is so valuable, because that's been so powerful for my team, are the people, the team behind seeds, is the people who have shown up to say, this is freaking cool. We like this. Like, that just gets the whole team hyped up, and we're like, yes, let's keep going. Like, let's move to the next level. So that's a really important role too, is just coming on and saying, hell yeah. So yeah, dropping some things. So one of the roles we have been missing up to this point is someone to tell the story, that person to get out there with the social media. So you probably haven't heard of us because we haven't been doing that. We've just been building for the last 3 years. We just started getting into that point where, like, hey, check out what we've been doing. So yeah, that's joinseeds.com. So as you would say it, you would spell it. Or DAO.hypha.earth. So that's where our DAO is. So you can check out the DAO. You can create an account there. You can start looking for proposals to fill and roles to fill and all that. Or you can go to joinseeds.com and check out what this broader story that I didn't really touch on today is all about.
Awesome. I absolutely love it. So I'll definitely, we're going to probably package this all up on a video, put it up on the eosDAC video. I'll send you the raw video as well, so you guys can put it out on your social media channels and, you know, put your intro in it, you know, and outgoing, whatever you want on there. And definitely include all the links for us, for eosDAC. Just go to eosDAC.io, connect with our community there. Our main community is in Discord. We're on all these different social media channels, but our main was in Discord. We have a section for just people showing up, and then we have a section for members. So you can actually interact with our bot and connect your EOS account actually with your Discord account, so you can have access to the member channels. And it's all read-only for everyone, but you know, we want to keep that conversation really engaged. And so those are our members that get to communicate there. We also have you know, members.eosDAC.io is the actual front-end interface for the DAC. So I'd love if you've got EOS DAC tokens, and if you don't, let me know. I can send you some, just to go ahead and engage there, and you know, join and vote for custodians, help participate in the process, communicate about the worker proposals that are there and being approved. And again, your energy is what it comes down to. You know, just spending the time to watch this videos like this, to learn about these new complicated concepts. I know we went into some details, but all this is important. It's kind of like the first time you drive a car. It's really confusing and really stressful. And you're like, so I can understand all this stuff. But eventually it's like, oh, driving a car is no big deal. And that's what it's going to be like with blockchains and cryptocurrency and DAC technology. It's going to be confusing at first. You're going to feel uncomfortable, but hopefully there are people like us that can help you walk through this process, get that experiential knowledge you need to be comfortable with it. And then you can feel comfortable sharing it with your friends and family. And that's really where that incredible explosion is going to happen, where you hear somebody saying, yeah, I'm thinking of doing a startup. And you're like, hey, why not build it as a DAC? And they can be like, wait, what's a DAC? And I'm like, well, I watched this video the other day. And so it's just, you know, sharing the story, helping
what
them.
Did you just call me?
It's going to be beautiful. You know, it's like people who just have one day of information more than someone else, in this exponentially growing world of information, you have a ton to share. So even just sharing this content is a helpful activity you can do if you feel you can't be a participant. But again, just as you beautifully said, everyone can add value, everyone can participate. And if not, then we're not building the system correctly. And that's really the goal, is we want to.
And that's why we need you to come tell us we're not building it correctly. So we still need you.
Exactly. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. This has been awesome. I'm so glad you reached out to me and we got this scheduled. And I'm looking forward to more conversations. It'd be really cool to kind of eventually get our communities to work together, get other communities. I know there's some great stuff on the DAO stack and all these cool things happening on Ethereum as well with Aragon. There's so many great projects. And I think you and I share that perspective that it's not going to be about silos. It's not going to be just, you know, one group of people doing one thing in one little tribalistic, you know, area. But we're a global tribe, and we're all going to be working together to improve human well-being and hopefully save the planet as we do it.
That's what so different about this paradigm shift, is that it's about openness and sharing. And we have a big task to take on as humanity right now. We don't have time to play around with this like siloed mentality of, well, we're going to be the ones to win. No, like we've all got to do this together. Let's share as best as we can. Let's work as best as we can and create that new system that's going to work for all of us. Like, yes, I'm 100% there. None of this, you know, technocratic tribalism where I think one technology is the best. It's like, no, we just are using one right now because it's really great for what we want to do. But yeah, like you pointed out, they're really all cool. I want to be friends with all of you. I'm not taking any sides here. Let's just do this together. Let's have a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much. And until next time.
Thanks, Luke. Yeah. Take care.